fam. Back.
What's good? What's good? Welcome to another episode of 4133 The Pod. And we back. I mean, I told y'all we'd be back. What's up, Nick? How you feeling, man?
Man, good. I'm doing good. Got to rest up and enjoy the holidays, and I'm excited to talk backup players for the Philadelphia Eagles. Who isn't excited for that?
Well, some people wanted the awards. Some people wanted the accolades. Some people wanted to write down the history. I only want one thing: Lombardi. Another one.
That's what I'm talking about.
Everything else is irrelevant to me. If the opportunity is here now, Saquon, if it's meant for him to have that record, it'll present itself again, in my opinion. Guess what? Eric Dickerson, does he hold the rushing for the playoffs? Who holds the most rushing yards for the playoffs? I'll take that.
Yeah,
Most
right.
rushing yards in
How
the Super
good that
Bowl.
is. That'd be
I'll
nice.
take those. I'll
That'd be
take
nice.
those. What's up,
That'd be
Cool
nice.
Cat?
Yeah,
So obviously the last time we talked, we weren't NFC East champions. We weren't locked into the 2 seed. So how is that feeling? How do you feel about the matchups we possibly have coming? And you know, obviously
yeah.
the
I mean,
NFC East champions.
yeah. I mean, it's most likely going to be. I mean, it is going to be either the Packers or the Commanders, right? So, I mean, I think both those teams are tough challenges. The Eagles are going to be favorites no matter who plays. I mean, assuming Jalen Hurts gets through concussion protocol, but as the days go on, I become a little bit more nervous with that. But I was just going through and looking at doing a little bit of prep work for the Packers coming up because that's probably going to be the most likely opponent. And it's a good squad. It's a good team overall. They're top 10 in both offense and defense, and all the major statistics. They are missing Jair Alexander throughout the rest of the season now, so that's unfortunate for them. But it'll be a bit easier of a matchup for us. But then if we get the Commanders, I mean, you see what Jaden Daniels did against the Falcons last week, where he pretty much went into to playoff mode, and it was he put the whole team on his back. And whenever you get a quarterback that can do things like that, it makes it very difficult to beat those kind of players in the playoffs. Jalen's similar way. You think you got the guy bottled up, and next thing you know, he's breaking a tackle and converting a first down when you thought you got everything covered on the back end. You thought you got the rush figured out on the front end. So it's like those guys can be very dangerous. I expect the Eagles should be favorites and they should beat both teams. But it's the playoffs and it's football. You never know what might happen. The ball could bounce the wrong way, could get tipped at the line of scrimmage, fall into someone's hands. You never know what might happen. But they should be favorites, and I feel good about them winning in the first round.
Yeah, when it come down to those two teams, people been kind of like asking me, from the perspective of taking my green glasses off. If I take these Eagle glasses off, I would say I prefer the Packers. I ain't gonna lie. I think our best matchup across the board is the Packers. I think we beat them in the trenches. I think the last time we played them, we obviously weren't the same team we are now, and we were able to beat them. I think they're, to me, if you ask my opinion, they're a worse team than the team we played with. I think I've seen a better version of this team throughout the season than I'm seeing at this moment. And it also could be, as you said, due to injury, they're a little beat up more than obviously the Commanders. But also the 3 time factor plays into my head when I think about it. Like, you really don't want to play a team 3 times. So obviously, either I'm going to play a team 2 times or 3 times. I would prefer to play the Packers, but either way the matchup goes, I believe we have a favorable matchup.
Yeah, for sure. And they should have, they really should have beat the Commanders that second time that they played. And if Jalen played, I mean, it's probably they're probably beating the Commanders. I mean, you get five turnovers from the defense. You'd expect Jalen Hurts would put up more points than Kenny Pickett did, right? So but you're absolutely right. When you play a team three times in a season, you really know what the other team's doing, what they're trying to accomplish. You saw that with Bobby Wagner in the last matchup. It was like he was triggering on things so quickly, beating guys to the punch. He beat Lane Johnson to the punch a couple of times, right? And that's no easy feat to do, right? So especially for those players like those cerebral, instinctual, those like Bobby Wagner, Hall of Fame caliber players, those guys can really give you problems when they've seen your offense three times now. And then you add in that they're going to get Jonathan Allen back. He should be back for that game. That just adds another layer to that Commanders defense, and he is without a doubt one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. But I'm with you.
But
I'd rather play the Packers, and oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially I want to play the Packers again because that first matchup between them, that definitely wasn't the defense's best showing. I know that they have some revenge on their mind, wanting to show out again against that team that really was able to put up a good amount of yards and points against them. They got embarrassed in a few different ways, giving up big touchdowns, missing a lot of tackles. I think they want to get that one back, right? So I'd be interested to see that matchup again with how the defense is playing right now.
Um, I I was gonna ask a question. Do you think like a lot? I felt like first a lot of them beating Lane to the punch was a lot of non-respect for the quarterback, pretty much pulling. I felt like at some point in that game they were like, Kenny Pickett's not gonna run. We're not gonna be scared of him running either. So we're gonna if they run RPO action, whatever they do to Saquon, we're not respecting anything on the back end from Kenny. Is that what
Yeah,
you've
to
seen
a
when you
degree.
watched it a little bit?
To a degree, whenever a backup quarterback is in the game, like they are, defenses are gonna key a little bit faster on the run, right? But that doesn't mean you still can't run the ball. You look at Rico Dowdle when Cooper Rush came in to start at quarterback in Week 10 on, he was I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I've talked about it on my show. He was, I believe, sixth in total rushing yards, and still was averaging 4.8 yards per carry. So you can still run the ball with backup quarterbacks. I think a big part of it is just when you've seen the same team and the same offense, you start to clue in on what they do formation wise, tendency wise. What runs are best for them, or what runs we like to run out of certain formations. It can become predictable. Every offense is predictable to a certain degree. I apologize. My dog is going crazy right now. Someone's at the
What's
front
it called?
door.
What kind of dog you got?
It is a Australian blue heeler. It's a cattle dog, so he's like high energy. He likes to herd little kids around, so he's tough to bring around kids, but he'll calm down here in a
Oh, he
second.
likes
But
to put his head and move him. He like to make a move.
he'll like nip with his teeth. He'll never bite
Yeah.
people, but he looks like he's biting people, and especially kids. So it like scares the hell out of kids, but it's like I know he's not going to bite them. If he actually bit these kids, you'd know. But it's just like herding dogs, a lot of times they nip with their teeth to like kind of scare people or whoever they're supposed to herd into moving wherever. So it gets annoying at family parties, that's for sure. Um, yeah, but I forgot where we were at. What were you talking about?
you would talk about the instinctive. Every offense is
Yeah,
predictable.
yeah. When you start looking at these teams on film, every team to a degree they become predictable. They change up things like their motions or their formations week to week, but you come out in certain fronts and certain disguises, or excuse me, certain coverage shells. Teams revert to certain plays to take advantage of that, and that's not that hard to predict over time. So when you see teams play each other again, there's a reason why it's much harder to beat division rivals again in the season, even when they might not be the best teams in the world. You've seen times when teams are able to really compete and compete with teams that are probably better than them talent wise. But once you start to, you've seen a team multiple times throughout the season. It's just you know what they do, they know what you do, and it's just a little bit easier to trigger on stuff.
Um, so you was obviously talking about some backups. Who are some of your standout guys you're looking forward to stepping on the gridiron this week? I mean, I got a few guys.
There's so many. It's kind of hard to narrow down. There's so many guys that I want to see. I mean, that we're gonna see play. It's and really at a whole bunch of different positions, and that's a. I think that really speaks to the depth of this team, the scouting department matching up with what the coaches are looking for. There's a lot of guys that I think would be get a lot more playing time on other teams, but. Just some guys. Obviously, I want to see Tanner McKee in extended playing time. We got to see him last week a little bit, but he wasn't asked to do a whole lot. And the plays that he was making, it was against single coverage, just throw it to Devontae, throw it to AJ. Wasn't a whole lot of disguise. I want to see what happens when, protections break down a little bit. He has to create and extend, find the quiet part of the pocket. How is his pocket movement? Um, and see how he, figures out defenses, progresses through his reads. I'm excited to see that. It's going to be a little tougher with the backup offensive line and there for him, but I I want to see. I think a lot of people are expecting and are going to pay attention to Moro Ojomo, but I've seen enough from him to know what we're getting with him. I really want to see Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and extended reps. How is he going to look? How does he look coverage wise? Especially when we look at the fact that Zach Bond isn't re-signed for next season yet. We're not guaranteed that he is going to be coming back. So we may be looking for a way to replace him. Can
That would
Jeremiah
be
Trotter Jr.
crazy.
be that guy, right?
I would be
But we'll
highly
have to see.
upset if Zach Bond wasn't retained.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be upset if that happens. But he is getting. If you look online, like the Mina Kimes of the world, there's a lot of people right now writing him in for. It looks like he's going to be a top five vote getter in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. So he's going to get the bag this offseason. And I don't know if Howie
I don't
Roseman
think
is
it's as
looking
big
to
as
make.
this. I don't think it's as big as everybody think it is, though.
I mean, he is a little bit older, but it's just
I ain't even talking about
he's played
age.
so
His
well.
experience as an inside linebacker is only one sample size. It's gonna be like the C.J. Gardner Johnson treatment when he ended up going to the Lions. Like, there's a market for your inexperience too.
Yeah, and that should so hopefully that does keep the price tag down a little bit. So I agree with you there. Hopefully it does keep it down, but I still wouldn't be surprised if some team comes out and really wants to pay for him. The thing is, his versatility adds so much to the defense, where he can rotate into to the line. He's great in coverage. He makes a lot of plays in the run game. He has the most stops in the NFL, meaning plays that constitute a negative play for the offense, and that's according to PFF or Next Gen Stats. Right? So he creates a lot of positive plays for the defense. It's hard to replicate that. Some guys get a lot of tackles, but they're making tackles 5, 6, 7 yards down the field. He makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage as a linebacker too. Now, part of that goes to we got a good front that can help protect him. All of that plays a factor, but we'll have to see how that plays out. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team falls in love with him this offseason and sees what he was able to do for our defense and really transform them. So we'll see how that goes. But who are you excited to see this game?
So I think Trevor Keegan is playing. I'm interested in seeing what his development has been like. I haven't seen him since the preseason, so over 18, 19 weeks. He kind of been installing you. I like to see how he's progressed along. I had some high hopes for him coming out. Obviously, Will Shipley. You already touched on Tanner McKee. I think that Nia Smith should get some opportunities in this game. I would like to kind of see what he's able to do. Maybe open up some eyes to something he could be able to bring to the offense on a week to week basis. Obviously, it's a lot of mouths already to feed, but maybe he can etch out some type of role in this team because I know they brought him in for a reason, but I obviously know he went through, if I'm not mistaken, 2 injuries. He came in injured, then he got re-injured, so it's a shaky situation for him. So I think he's gonna get some opportunities. And Gabe Hall, I, I don't know what my assumption was with him in the draft process as a UDFA, but I like what I seen on tape. I think he could play a couple of different positions on the front. Want to see if Fangio kind of moves him around a little bit and gets him active. So that's some of the guys.
Yeah,
Cornerbacks, I think we got what Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks and Makai Gardner, right? That's who playing.
Yeah, I just don't know if they're gonna have space to bring up. You can only elevate two practice squad guys, so I don't know if Makai Garner is gonna be able to get elevated.
Okay.
Like you mentioned, Gabe Hall will have to get elevated. They're gonna have one spot that they can sign a guy to the roster since CJ Uzoma is on the injured reserve now, and then I imagine they're probably gonna elevate a defensive end and an interior defensive lineman and then a running back. Um, so we'll see if Makai Garner can get in there. But I feel like Eli Ricks is probably going to get a lot of run. Isaiah Rogers might play the first quarter or something, but he's probably going to be a valuable asset in the playoffs, knowing he's been playing in dime. He's Slay's gotten hurt in pretty much every game at some point, so it's like he's probably going to get playing time. But yeah, it'll be a big opportunity for those corners too.
Hey, obviously I just seen the report. Did you take anything from the report that the offensive line and Saquon practiced today?
No, I mean these guys still are going to prepare and get ready. They're not just getting the entire week off, right? You still want to go through and get practice reps in. You still want to stay in rhythm a little bit. I think the bigger concern is that Jalen hasn't practiced. Right, it's one thing to not play for a couple weeks because you were trying to rest up for the playoffs, but as long as you're still in practice and you can go through and you can practice with your guys, that can mitigate some of those issues. But he hasn't practiced for the past 2 weeks now, so there may be some real rust going into the playoff game, but I don't put a whole lot of weight into the fact that the offensive line and Saquon practice. I expected them to practice to some degree this week, even if it's
No,
just
I
to
just seen that. I
throw.
seen that Devontae and Smitty. I mean Smitty and AJ still didn't play, so I was just wondering, how you felt
Yeah,
about
well, Smitty injured his wrist last week on that play when he got hit in the back early in the game, and then AJ's been dealing with some knee issue, right, and practice over the past couple weeks. So I feel like they just wanted to give those guys some rest. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'm misreading the situation and there's bigger issues afoot. It also could be a thing if Jalen's not practicing. All right, we're gonna give these guys a rest anyways. I don't know.
it. Yeah, I just to me I felt like, I've kind of been voicing my opinion about the Jalen Hurts thing. It's not like people are, I guess, assuming that I believe he won't play in the first game. It's not that. It's how will he play in the first game? How will he be feeling in the first game? And I asked somebody today, I was like, so what if the injury report next week, let's say he's not a full participant until Thursday, Friday, you know, then how do you feel about the situation? He was like, oh, I'd be worried. So why can't I worry now? Why can't I predetermine my worry at this moment that I'm slightly worried? It's not like I'm like, but it's just obviously our team doesn't do us any favors with our stress because they don't tell us anything. They don't reveal anything. They're not going to give you any update until he's off the injury report and back on the field. You're not going to know anything different. Which obviously makes it a little harder to weigh things because you're kind of looking at it from perspectives like, okay, well, if he just told me he was good, I would be okay. But when you come out, what day, whatever day that was, I think Monday, you say, you haven't heard the updates, but last, he's still in protocol, and then you come out Wednesday, and you kind of say, well, he's still in protocol. Then today, you kind of come out and say, well, he's finally starting to progress through protocol. It's like, okay, so did he go 11 days without progression through protocols, or how bad was the concussion that you felt? It took 11 days for you to tell me that he's finally progressing. It's like I'm a thinker, so when you say stuff, I read into your words and I kind of analyze what you said. So even the Saquon Barkley situation, when he was like, well, Saquon's probably one. I'm like, okay, you said probably. So did you leave the door open for him to possibly play? Or I mean, why not just close the door if he wasn't going to play? And it's things like that. Like if he was, I mean, people are like, when I say it, they're kind of like, oh well, he's cleared already. They're just not letting him practice. No, if he was cleared, he would have no injury designation other than the left finger. I'm not worried about his health. I know by the time we played the first playoff game, yes, he'll be healthy. But what will be the missing fundamentals that he's has to get back used to? That's going to take 2 quarters. That obviously, as Philadelphia Eagle fans, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see a quarter of rusty Jalen Hurts, bad offensive play, defense holding the game together in the first playoff game. No, you want to see crispy. You want to see it smooth. You want to see it operating like it like it was in the Steelers game. You want to see the run game like it was in the Dallas game. You want to see a multitude of things, but then when I say I'm concerned about Jalen at this point, it's not will he play. I know he'll be on the field. I know he'll be out there. I know there's nothing that can stop him from going in the link in week 19, which is wild card week, and playing a football game. But what will it look like? How will he progress from playing 10 snaps in the Commanders game to no snaps to now game with limited practice reps?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're breaking up here. Oh,
My camera
I
froze.
lost you.
My camera froze.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you try and figure that out. But I definitely agree that if he hasn't played in practice and all that time, it's going to be an issue, right? Or it's more likely to be an issue. I can't say for sure it is going to be one. Maybe he comes out the next week of practice, the ball doesn't touch the ground, and he's fine. But here's the thing with concussions: it's not up to the coaching staff. It's not up to the trainers of whether he comes back. Uh, they have independent doctors that are evaluating him for the concussion. So it's really not up to Nick Sirianni. There's not a whole lot of updates they can truly give. Now, Nick's never been really good with telling us the truth, which, you know, I know fans hate, but I really don't care about that. I would rather the opposing, excuse me, the opponents not know what's going on either. That is the most important factor. As a fan, would I like to know? As a gambler, would I like to know? Yes, absolutely. But there is to a degree a competitive advantage when the other team isn't sure what they're preparing for, right? So I'm fine with them being coy. I've learned to not listen to what Nick Sirianni says because half the time it's he's not giving you he's just giving you bullshit, right? So I don't listen to that too much anymore. But um, I mean, you're right. If he hasn't, that's when things start to look. It's a much higher potential of looking rusty early in the game. Is not practicing for 3 weeks or 2 weeks leading into the game. He probably will play, but what is it going to look like in the first quarter in the first half? Maybe they need to lean into the run game, including Jalen Hurts as a runner earlier in the game while he gets the rhythm back. Have your a few handful of pass plays early in the game, but they might need to lean on Saquon Barkley and then also Jalen Hurts' legs. I do think they're gonna unleash Jalen Hurts a little bit more in the playoffs in terms of his running, where we're gonna see him. I think he's averaging around 9 rushes a game, which also includes the quarterback sneaks. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 15 carries in the game in the playoffs. That's just part of what Jalen does best. That's what he brings to the table, and you kind of put him in bubble wrap during the regular season to a degree because you want to get him to the playoffs healthy. And unfortunately, he's been dinged up at some point in just about every single year that he's been a starter, right? So, but yeah, you're right. I think he'll play, but how does it look in the first quarter? I'm not sure.
So um, Jesus, I had a question, and I was listening to you. I was so tapped in. I'm like really listening. It'll come back to me. So, I agree with you, right? So, like, obviously, we're gonna have to figure out how it's gonna go here soon. Obviously, he probably will be back Wednesday. More than likely. Um, I think it's more like the 11 days. Like, it's like a situation where you kind of like, okay, he's not cleared yet. Like, what's going on? Like, okay, why is it? But somebody said something too, and they said they believe he was concussed in the first Commanders game, and he beat the protocol, and that's kind of why they're taking this one a little bit more sensitively because they're counting it as a second concussion in a sense. I do think he was concussed in that game, but
Yeah. Yeah, he might have been. He might have been. I don't know everything that goes into the protocol to determine when these guys are ready back to play. I remember when I was playing, it was like you do these little games and these, reacting to things quickly, like on the computer screen. I don't know if that's still the protocol and the test that they have to do. Um, but
I
now
seen
there's
somebody with a short video kind of laying it out. It's like a 7 day period. Each 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 period is different, and it's 24 hours to clear. So I think one of them was kind of like interactive games, showing no symptoms during those interactive games, and then responding back with no symptoms after 24 hours. So I know it was like 7 steps before they even like, hey, you can play.
yeah, and it's interesting that like when you looked at Jalen, like it didn't look like much of a concussion, right? Or like it was a serious concussion, right? Because he got back up. I made this point in my in my pod about how if this was boxing, he would have been able to stand up for the 10 count, right, and continue fighting. If it was MMA, he probably is able to recover and continue the fight. But in football, you're pulled out of the game. You look at Sidney Brown when he got concussed the week before on the first play of the game against the Steelers. He was knocked out cold. He was in a fencing posture position, and then he got cleared to play the very next game. It's just weird how these concussions and how they can work. It's there doesn't seem to be any real clear cut science on how quickly guys are able to recover, and it's just hard to determine versus saying like, oh, okay, a low ankle sprain, they typically you could play through it, or you might be out for this amount of weeks. You're never really truly sure how long it's going to take guys to recover. And the thing is, again, it's not up to the Eagles training staff, right? These are independent consultants that they have to go through and get approval from to come back. So it's
And
just
they're
interesting
NFL
to me.
approved, right? Those
Yeah,
neuro, they're through the NFL, right?
yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I imagine he'll be fine. It could be a lingering thing, like you said, but from the previous concussion. But I feel like there's a bigger like the NFL is going to come down on them if they were hiding a concussion earlier in the season, and then now they're like, okay, well this is actually a second concussion of the season, so we need to keep him out longer. I don't know.
How, do you feel about Sidney Brown coming out this week? I think he's the starting safety from what I kind of seen. He's going to be the
He,
starting safety.
yeah, he was one of the guys we didn't talk about him. He's a guy that I'm excited to see because he hasn't really gotten much playing time this season. He kind of got screwed over a little bit. And when we talk about guys getting hurt in week 18 of last season, he's one of those guys. He got hurt, and it had a butterfly effect where he now misses training camp. He misses all of OTAs. He misses training camp. He doesn't get the reps with a new defensive coordinator who wasn't the guy that was, you know, that brought him onto the team, right? He wasn't the coordinator when they drafted Sidney Brown. So he's behind in reps. They've put Tristan McCollum ahead of him. Avante Maddox was the first safety up in this last game when Reed Blankenship got hurt, and then again when CJ got hurt. Right. So he's kind of fallen behind in the depth chart. This is a great opportunity for him to show that he should be getting more playing time. I'm not saying it's going to happen if he plays and balls out in this game that he's going to get playing time in the playoffs, but hopefully it can give him, a good step forward. So when they go into OTAs next season, that he's not behind Tristan McCollum or he's not behind whoever they might bring in at that point in time because he's got a lot of talent, right? He brings a lot of energy. Uh, love seeing him with his with that fight that he had last week. Now I don't like him getting kicked out of the game, but I like that he didn't take any shit from anyone, right? So he brings a lot to the table. He brings energy. He brings a lot of that what CJ brings in terms of like uh, being a big hitter that can energize the defense and give them a lot of juice. So and he's I mean, you look at the guys on the at the in the position group at safety. He's probably the best athlete that they have back there. So hopefully, this whether or not he balls out, it'll at least be a good learning experience for him to get more experience in this defense and set himself up for next season. But I'm excited to see him. What about you?
Now, I think I obviously agree with you on the first part. Like I do agree, like the injury in week 18 kind of butterfly effect. He ended up having obviously guys that lost their spot in Avante Maddox kind of trying to progress and get somewhere on the defense. So he's at safety, and then you have Tristan McCullum, who Fangio brings in as a UDFA to kind of compete for that spot. And then you come in off injury weeks late. These guys have been through OTAs, have been through training camp. They've been through weeks of playing through the preseason and the regular season together. So I think I was kind of a little torn though, because I thought at some point he was gonna kind of inch his way into that. Okay, I'm in front of Tristan. I'm in front of Avante. I'm the first one off the bench. Because every time one of them like kind of limp a little bit, I'm looking to see who throw their helmet on because I'm hoping it's Sidney Brown because I believe he can bring something to this defense. You can go back and check how I felt about Sidney Brown coming out of the draft. He was on my list. I had him as one of the guys I evaluated. Um, I thought, if he could slow the game down and just play a little bit smoother of a game with his speed and aggressiveness, he could be, a problem, you know. And I don't know, man. It seems like maybe I don't think Tristan McCullum's a better safety. Just being honest, when I watch Tristan McCullum, I'm kind of like, dude don't got the talent Sidney got. Avante has gave me a bitter taste, if, like by his play over the last season, this season, and I mean, obviously the injuries have built a repetitive PTSD in my head that every time he goes to make a tackle, I, I grit my teeth together because I'm thinking he's gonna get hurt. So I'm ready to see what he has this weekend. Hopefully, he come up with a big pick or something. They're trying to squeeze it. The one thing I didn't like, didn't he play? He played some safety at one point this season, right? No, or was that Tristan McCullum? He got
He
beat deep.
he got I don't recall him getting beat really at safety. He got some playing time towards the end of the Giants game. He played like
Because he
5
almost had a
snaps.
pick, right?
Yeah, he almost had an interception in that game. And it's like you see his athleticism, his burst jump off the film when he's on the field. No one can match that in that group, So and then you add in the dude can hit, he can now he does miss tackles, right? That has been an issue for him, but that's not a thing that you're gonna see like figure that out and practice a lot, right? Because you're not tackling guys to the ground. So
Right.
to me, I feel like it's got to be like a communication issue, or you're just not grasping Fangio's defense, which is interesting because he was on Sean Desai's defense last year, and Desai was a Fangio disciple, right? They were together in Chicago, so a lot of the same principles. So I do find it interesting that he hasn't been able to crack the at least top three in the safety rotation. They go Tristan McCollum, then they go back to Vontae Maddox as the third safety. I do wonder what's going on there. But I don't know. He flashed a lot of good plays when he got to play his rookie year at safety. We did talk about coming into the season too. Maybe he is a guy that rotates as like a big nickel on early downs, but Cooper DeJean's just been so good in that role that it's not worth taking him off the field. But I feel like it's got to be something with communication on the back end, just not grasping the defense or being as knowing it as well as some of the guys in front of him, which it's interesting because we saw Tristan McCollum, especially in that Commanders game. He blew a coverage on a touchdown, and it's like I think there's good things to Tristan McCollum's game, but he's a very young player. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning before he's ready to get out there and be a rotational safety for this team.
Something I've seen recently, and I haven't seen you touch on it, but if you did, I might have missed it. It seems like teams are willing the last few weeks to try Quinion Mitchell on kind of the same type of move, the same type of play. Both of them resulted in touchdowns. Is it something he's doing out there that you've seen that maybe it seems like he's sitting on underneath and he's just getting beat over the top, but I could be wrong.
Well, I mean that Commanders touchdown that he gave up was probably a situation where he was playing for like an intermediate route because it was third. I forgot what the distance was. It was like 3rd and 8 or longer than that. It was something like that. So I feel like he wasn't sitting there and trying to take away a deep pass. But there have been times where he just gets a little like he'll open up his hips a little bit too early and just give free release to receivers. But the thing is, teams haven't been really testing him for much of the year. They tested him early in the season, and they kind of stopped. They figured they'd try and test Slay or test other options in the defense. And because Quinion doesn't rotate and travel, it's a little bit easier to kind of just ignore him and try and attack somewhere else on the defense. But There were times when guys were getting open. There was plays when Malik Neighbors was open against Quinion, but Daniel Jones just didn't throw it to him or was completely inaccurate. So there was times where you could see it's not like he was. We get this thing where Jaws came out and said he's reminds me of Deion Sanders, and then everyone takes that and runs with it, and it's like, why did he come out and say that he is like comparable to the best corner that's ever played, right? That's not fair to the kid and his development. It's just also not true, right? Maybe he gets there at some point in time, but he's not there as a rookie. It was just a thing where guys hadn't been testing him as much. When you get tested, you're gonna give up plays. When you get targeted more, you're gonna give up some plays. But he's also made plays as well. So the more he gets tested and they throw it at him, he'll give up some plays. But he's also gonna make plays as well. He could have had an interception on that play when Chauncey got his second one of the game. He'll be in position to make plays. He did a good job squeezing Brandon Cooks to the sideline on a go route. Got in good position to lean into the receiver and then look back for the ball. Right. So but some of the stuff is just like rookie stuff or young corner stuff. Like one of the plays he gave up, he just was had a high back pedal, which caused, and he also started just bailing pretty quickly. And then he ends up in a bad position to break on the ball where he has to step way behind himself so he doesn't fall off balance because his pad level was too high in his back pedal. Just things like that you'd like to see cleaned up. But when he hasn't been challenged for much of the season, especially in the second half of the season, it's like you could probably get a little lackadaisical in your technique and whatnot. But I mean, the kid's still a good player. I do expect teams are going to try and challenge them and throw it deep against them because it's just too hard to sit there and try and dink and dunk all the way down the field against this defense. Teams are going to try and generate explosives somehow. And generally, you start to see them try and take shots down the field. And I expect that to happen um, in the playoffs, but we'll see how the rookie responds.
Yeah, I just kind of paid attention. Not even just because they were touchdowns, but even in the Dallas game, I seen like they were kind of like consecutively going that way with comeback routes, out routes, really quick routes. It's like he was giving up too much space. Hoping, in the playoffs he sees that and kind of adjusts. I kind of remember him getting a little better in the Cowboys game, but the game became a rout, so it was a little bit easier to key in on. Hey, they're passing the ball, or if they're running, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and also it's like when you haven't been thrown at much in the season, it's some of those things that you need to clean up get overlooked. The coaches still make a point to talk about it in the film review when they're meeting with these guys, but it doesn't really hit home until you get beat on some of these plays a little bit, right? One of those plays that he gave up on a comeback route was he was smothering the receiver, but you could see his eyes were looking at the head of the Cowboys receiver. The Cowboys receiver gave him a little look back, and he bites on that head fake right when his eyes should be down and focused on his hips. Ignore the head and shoulders because receivers are going to use that to fake you out, right? Just little things like that where you can now take that and use that coaching point for him to get better and be more prepared for when the playoffs do come or for next season, right? But when you're not getting challenged a whole lot, you're not going to see some of those flaws get exposed or some of those bad plays get exposed. But again, it's just these are also small sample sizes as well. For the majority of the time, the biggest uh, he's doing a really good job. I think back to the Falcons game, the last drive of the game, they were playing cover two to his side. He bites on a route in the flat, and then they throw a corner behind him. That didn't really become an issue the rest of the season because he took that and he learned from it and he got better. So
Right.
all these things, failure is the best teaching tool, right? So when you get beat, it's a good opportunity to teach these kids and allow them to grow and develop. So it'll only help his game with things like that. But he still has all the ability in the world, and I trust him even when in the playoffs.
I mean, he did get voted as the Pro Bowl alternate, so he has been playing some good games. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I felt like it felt like teams had seen something. I was wondering if you had seen something different. Just seeing like teams were just like, all right, we're gonna take this opportunity, try it. It was like a 50-50 shot. It was a couple of times where he obviously showed some bad technique and he got beat on some easy routes. And then it was a couple of times where I seen him hip to hip with Brandon Cooks coming across the middle, with nowhere to pass the ball. So Obviously, he young, so he'll clean it.
Yeah, yeah. The areas that I saw when guys were getting open against him, the vast majority of them were like curls and comeback routes. Just plays like that where he flipped his hips and guys would just break off the route underneath him. Those were probably the plays where guys were getting open the most. So if those are the plays that he's giving up, I think they'll be okay, right? They'll live with you trying to go on 10, 12, 13 play drives to try and score. It's the plays like against Terry McLaurin where he gave up a touchdown just too easily on that kind of play that he's we don't want to see, right? But if I was a team, some of the routes that he was giving up, just like curls and comebacks, were the biggest things that I saw.
I felt like the curls and comebacks happened because of that Terry McLaurin touchdown too. He's
Yeah,
getting
it's
he's
just
getting into his back pedal, and he's like, "I'm not gonna let you get over top." And then you like break it off, and he's like, "All right, I'll get that up. Let me come make the tackle." Because I remember at a point in the season where if you broke that off, he was almost in your hip pocket. He was almost running the route for you. He in the Green Bay game, I can remember it vividly. He almost like came up and got it, and then in the Atlanta game, he almost took it out of Buddy's hands. So it's
yeah.
like
So if he's like hasn't flipped his hips already, and he does a good job with his read steps and his back pedal, and he doesn't start bailing right away, his ability to burst on throws underneath is elite, right? But it's the times when his hips get flipped. I don't think like if I were to compare him and Andrew Wiggins, uh, Wiggins is a more fluid athlete. I think Quinyon's a little. He's not. I don't think he has the same hip fluidity as him. So when it comes to trying to flip his hips and turn back around, or even speed turns, you'll see him a little tight at times. Um, I think some of those things give him issues, right? But if the routes break off underneath him and he's still squared up and ready to burst underneath, those are times when he's able to burst and close back underneath and get his hands on the football.
I like the
Did I say
Andrew
did I
Wiggins.
say
I
Andrew
like
Wiggins? I meant Nate
Yeah,
Wiggins.
I was gonna say. I was
Wrong
gonna
dude.
correct it. I was gonna say I like this Nate Wiggins coming out too.
Yeah.
Um, I think he got a lot of. I don't know. I think Quillian is to me looking at it now is better as far as like just being a corner. But when it comes to like you said, like the speed, the makeup ability, like Wiggins can get back into play and I mean like flash. I watched that dude get beat and flip his hips and turn the jets on and get back into play. And like sometimes I seen Quinion do it, but like you said, like sometimes he gets sloppy. He get like he almost like he's over there bored.
Yeah, I mean Quinyon's got that makeup speed in his bag for sure. It's just if a guy's running a double move or something like that, or let's say he opens up his hips to the inside, and then the guy runs an out route, and he's got to flip back around. I think Wiggins is a little bit more smooth and able to flip back around more quickly on plays like that. But when you got a guy like Quinyon who's a 4.3 40 type of guy, it allows you to make up on plays when if even if you aren't the most fluid, right? The most mobile athlete out there. So it's just different ways to play the position. He'll just have to learn how to play the game to accentuate what he's good at and mitigate some of the things that he aren't the best part of his game as well, right? But I love seeing him impress. I think when he gets up in people's face, they have a hard time getting separation from him. But in the Fangio scheme, sometimes they're not able to press up every single play. Sometimes you have to play off.
I see our guy CJ Gardner Johnson took the Pro Bowl a little personal. How do you feel about the six Pro Bowlers that we have?
Well, CJ, it's the he has 6 interceptions, right? But he also gave up, I think, 7 touchdowns this season as well. So I can understand why he might not have been voted in. And then you look at he had been missing a lot of tackles, especially earlier in the season. He brings a lot to the defense, but the thing is, there's going to be guys that get snubbed every single year, right? I think the biggest snub is the Jordan Mailata snub. He probably he probably should have been in over Sewell from the Lions, but at the end of the day, only three offensive tackles get selected to the Pro Bowl. Someone is getting left out that's a really, really good player. So it's tough. I think more importantly is a Pro Bowl, or excuse me, All Pro uh, award. There's no fan voting in that. Fan voting can definitely skew some of these who get selected to the Pro Bowl because you just get a bunch of guys that are a fan base that's super excited to vote for guys, and then you see guys like Taylor Decker was second in Pro Bowl voting for left tackles or for tackles, and then you see some teams just because they're so disenfranchised with their team this season, they just don't even vote at all, right? I can't imagine there's a whole lot of Jets fans going out there and saying, "Hey, vote for this guy for the Pro Bowl," right? So fan voting can skew things, but when there's only so many people that are able to be selected for positions, it's like you're gonna get guys that are snubbed. There's really good players around the league. There's a lot of really good tackles in the league, especially left tackles. So it's tough for Jordan. But at the end of the day, his value for the team speaks for itself. I think he has had his best year by far. He's taken steps from where he was last year, and especially in terms of pass protection. Just looking at him against Micah this past week and what Jordan looked like against Micah the previous year, you can see the growth in his game. There's and then you look at on the defense. I probably more snubs defensively, than really on the offensive side because the defense is first in yards allowed, I think third in points per game allowed, and then they only had two Pro Bowlers on the team, Zach Bond and Jalen Carter. It's like something's missing there. But again, fan voting can skew a lot of things, and still Quinion was an alternate as well. But I don't know. Who'd you think was the biggest snub for the team?
Uh, I- Jordan Mailata first. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. They keep doing it to him too. It keeps happening. It's like kind of little little disingenuous in my opinion, but because he doesn't have, I guess, the Penny Sewell name per se. Um, he's not really a household football name until recently. So I understand. I guess I get it. C.J. Gardner Johnson too, though. I felt like him. I felt like we could also. I felt like they could have voted N'Kobe in. I don't know if he's a big snub. Obviously, it's a lot of linebackers, but I mean, I believe if their name was Greenlaw and Fred Warner, they both be Pro Bowlers and all Pro lock-ins. So with the stats that they've put up, just side by side, you look at them as a tandem. I feel like they both should have been Pro Bowlers, but like you said, it's limited to how many you can put in. So obviously, you don't want to give us all the spots, but
Yeah, and you'll get
for a
some
team,
alternates in there too. Some of these guys will be selected as alternates, although hopefully not, because hopefully we're playing in the Super Bowl, and so none of those guys can go. But it's just what happens when there's only so many guys that can get selected to the Pro Bowl.
right?
So it's just unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Hey man, quick. I haven't done a commercial yet. So hey, look, we here. 99 people in here watching with us right now, Twitter and YouTube. If you haven't yet, man, in the description, Nick's YouTube and his Twitter pages are tagged. If you want to follow up, watch his previous video on the Cowboys and the Giants video also on the upcoming game. Get a little insight on what's going on, man. Get some good film breakdown. Tap in with them, man. Philly Film Room on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Twitter, Philly underscore films on Twitter. So tap in. You know what I mean? Good content, man. Good content every week, 2 times a week.
Yeah, and we're actually probably going to change it up a little bit going into the playoffs, where we're going to be doing. I'll do a review podcast, but we're going to break it up and do more daily content instead of the review podcast. Or excuse me, the preview podcast just being one podcast that we put out in the week. Going to break it down to like offensive line versus defensive line preview. Then one day is going to be the skill position preview, and then another day is going to be scheme preview. Just so we can go a little bit more granular. There'll be some parts where I can script it out and I can really go into detail about explaining certain plays. Because when I try and do it in a podcast form, it's just it's too difficult to be like off the top of my head, be like, oh well, this guy took this step here, and then the defense was and this coverage and whatnot. So I think it'll be definitely an interesting format that I think people will like.
I'm really ready for the format of the playoffs to lay out, Nick. I'm kind of interested to see who plays who. I think, obviously, this is an Eagle podcast, but in the Commanders, I think they're in a sticky situation because with the Rams sitting their starters and basically giving the Bucks the third seed with the win against the Saints, I think that's like a little sticky situation for the Commanders. I don't think they match up well with the Bucks. Having to go to Tampa, I just don't know how that helps them out. But is there any interesting matchups you're looking at that could play out?
Yeah, I mean, not anyone that plays the Commanders, they need to do everything that they can to keep Jaden Daniels in the pocket. You look what happened in that Falcons game. He just kept breaking contain and creating things with his legs when really they weren't doing a whole lot through the air. And I think that's going to be a big thing in the playoffs because you get better defenses, you get better corners that match up with guys like Terry McLaurin, but they don't have a whole lot of weapons outside of Terry McLaurin that are going to create and generate explosive plays consistently, right? Zach Ertz can get open and create plays underneath, but he's not necessarily a guy that's going to go out there and consistently get 20, 30, 40-yard gains and flip the field. It's Terry McLaurin that's going to kill you, and then Jaden Daniels on the ground. And then you saw Jaden, like they had some pretty creative play designs on the ground for him um, when it wasn't just him dropping back and trying to scramble. So that's something that you're going to see. I think that's something you'll see from the Eagles. Their quarterback designed run game is going to be a little bit more diverse going into the playoffs when you start to unload your playbook. Some of those plays that you maybe ran once in the season or not at all in the season, you start to break out in the playoffs. But I'll be interested to see that Buccaneers matchup. I mean, they did lose to the if that is who they play in the first round, but they did lose to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush, so I can't come out here and say I'm super confident and the Bucks taking them down, or anything. But I do find it interesting that the Rams are just willing to potentially give up that seed and then play whoever
The Commanders
whoever.
lost to those same Cowboys, though. It's just.
That's that is true, but that is true. So I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the Bucks didn't look very good in that game, though. It was like they were down multiple scores until a garbage time touchdown got them in it. And then if I had to say who would I be more worried about in the playoffs, Baker Mayfield or Jaden Daniels, I think Jaden Daniels can take over a game in multiple ways as opposed to Baker. He can, that Baker magic is real, but Jaden Daniels is a different type of quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out.
I think it's a few good matchups that's kind of on the line this week. I think that the playoffs could become very interesting. I wish we still had a number one seed on the table at this point, but
Well, then
we
Saquon could
don't.
be going for the record, and we wouldn't have these all these debates. But
I
it
think
wouldn't
it's better
affect
where we
me.
at,
But
though. I think
what's
it's
up?
better where we at. I think it's better where we're at.
Yeah, I mean they'll get to rest some guys, and then also it's like the Packers and the Commanders. They're both in the playoffs, but neither one of them wants to face the Eagles in the first round, so they're still going out there and trying not to be the seventh seed, right? So it's like they're putting their players out there for at risk for injury. Their players another week where their bodies get broken down just a little bit more, whereas the Eagles can rest up and prepare themselves um, through the playoffs. And it's like you don't know who's dinged up right now. There's a lot of guys that have injuries that you just don't even know about or tired legs. Lane Johnson's 34 years old. He's not able to recover as quickly as some of these 22, 23, 24-year-old guys out there. So it's important for some of these guys to go out there and get rest and prepare for the final push in the season. But I think it's great that we get to rest and other teams have to really battle it out and push towards the end of the season.
So what you saying that you think McVay made a good decision?
I mean, for him, it's up to how he feels about his team and where they're at. Maybe he doesn't care who the matchup is. They think they can come out and beat
Well,
anyone. And
I
the thing
think
is,
is it more that he thinks he's like it doesn't matter if I lose or win. I got a home playoff game in my pocket.
Yeah, probably something like that. And I think he's what's important for him is making sure his team is healthy going down the stretch. He's gonna have to go through and beat good teams. Yeah, at some point you're gonna have to beat these teams anyways, right? So it's I'm not sure it matters a whole lot to them.
Because I was looking at it a little bit, and I was just like, I would more likely want the 3 seed than the 4 seed. But I understand it though. I get that he's like, hey, look, I get a home playoff game. Either way, if I win or lose, if I win, I, more than likely I'm on the road for the next game anyways. So might as well get the rest now than later. I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a thing that everyone's got to battle with and contend with, right? Making those decisions and what's best for your team. And the thing is, when people talk about the Saquon Barkley, decision, a lot of people are saying that, stop being scared. They're playing scared. And yeah, to a degree, that is true. They're scared. They're worried for injury. They don't want to put their players at risk, but when you don't have to face the consequences of the decisions, people are going to take more risks. So fans are going to be like, yeah, go out and play Saquon. They don't have to deal with the backlash of what happens if AJ Brown gets injured and is out for a game in the playoffs, right?
Or
But it's
Saquon
on
gets injured and then
uh,
they're gonna kill Nick.
right, exactly. It would be the complete opposite situation where now we're killing Nick for not, being the guy to take control and save the players from themselves because the players you don't go out in a game thinking you're going to get hurt, right? You don't if you're in a position to set a record, of course you're going to want to go out there and set that record. These guys are competitors. They're going to want to do
Facts.
that, right? But the coach has to step in and sometimes save them from themselves in these situations and remember that this is a team sport. There's a team goal. These guys came together in the preseason and the off season with the goal of winning a Super Bowl. The goal wasn't to get Saquon Barkley the rushing record, right? It was a team goal. And add into that, what if Nick went out there and made that decision? How would the team view his message the next year when he's like, you need to sacrifice and check your ego at the door for the team? But then in a situation like this, well, we're going to put one guy's, pursuit of a record over the good of the team ultimately, right? But yeah, people would crucify Nick if someone were to get hurt
Oh
in
man,
that game,
he'll be a buffoon immediately. They
and
would.
people already hate him still, and he's look at his record year in and year out, so
Bro, I could see the videos coming out now, Nick, of people screaming at their TVs, calling Nick everything but a child of God.
yeah,
They'll
for
be
sure.
they'll be crucifying him up there. They'll be like, "You idiot! You put him in for a record. Your ego got in the way. We hate.
Yeah,
He'll be hated forever." But
yeah, oh,
they
for
still
sure.
hate him now, so it's lose lose. I mean, his the only way you win is if he gets in, breaks the record, and then he gets out injury free. But then that's a risk you took. So it makes no sense to even take that risk.
Right. And even if they get out healthy, how do we know a guy doesn't get, a hand injury that we just don't know about or, gets rolled up on and technically he can play the next game, but he's instead of playing at maybe he was 80% coming into this game, now he's at 60% in the next game, you know. In the moment, I understand why fans want us to go for the record. I get it. It would be nice to have there for whatever reason it's become this I guess this consolation prize. Well, if we don't get the Super Bowl, at least we'll have the rushing record. Do you think anyone's going to care about that if they lose in the first round of the playoffs? Nobody's going to care about that record at that point in time. They're going to be talking about Nick sucks. We can't win with Nick as a head coach. They're going to be talking about reasons why we lost, not about the record. They're not going to fall back and be like, well, at least we got the record. It just
No,
seems like
they're gonna
clubs.
they're gonna rub the record in the face. They're gonna be like, "We got the Russian record, and then we did that. That's how we looked in the playoffs after getting the
Yeah,
Russian." They're gonna kill him.
yeah,
He's gonna be crucified either way. So you might as well just play it how you gonna play it.
yeah. And the thing is, I'm gonna butcher the saying, but it's a saying in among coaching circles. If you listen to the fans in the stands, well, you might as well be sitting with them. You can't factor in what the fans want in these decisions. You have to factor in what's good for the team, and not just good for the team now, but in the future, right? How do people view your message when you're talking about check your ego at the door? When last season we went and put at risk, the what was best for the team and trying to win a Super Bowl for one individual record. But it's been definitely a hotly debated topic this week.
I didn't know what side you was on. I've been thinking about it since you said we was going. I'm like, what side is my good friend gonna be
I mean, I'm going to be on the side of the team. They're these guys all worked their ass off this offseason to win a Super Bowl. And that was ultimately what the goal is at the end of the day. So I'm on the side of what's going to be best for the team. I didn't realize it was going to be this big of a conversation. I thought most people were going to be like, yeah, the goal is Super Bowl. But I don't know. Again, it's people that
PTSD
don't
from
know the difference.
2023. Nah, it's
What's up?
PTSD from last year. It's PTSD from last year. Every For some reason, and you don't come into spaces that much, and I know you'd be busy. If you ever come in those spaces and you really listen to the fans talk, it's all like propaganda of what if this happens? What if that? And then you have the other side of the fans is like, man, I don't think anybody in the playoffs can beat us. And then the fans that are kind of like skeptical, they're coming in and they're like, but man, you see what happened to us last year. You got to be humble. Like I am humble, but I also don't want to live in the past. Like, can we move forward? Like we've seen that nothing compares this team that we have right now to 2023. The numbers, the skill of how we've been beating teams, how it looks. We haven't we didn't go 1 for 6 obviously already. I mean that obviously is off the table. Can't do that now. So I mean, a lot of people are in that type of limbo where they're like stuck in last year. They don't want to get over what happened, and it's like Brian Johnson isn't here. Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, they're not here. Those guys that led to the downfall and collapse of this team have moved on to other places. And there is a new staff here, whether you want to look at it that way or not. Yes, pieces of that old staff is still intact, but the main pieces are gone. It's a new regime. It's a new order of power, order of law, and what happened last year just isn't going to happen this year. Whether you want to look at it in that manner or not, as a fan, like that's not going to happen. But people are stuck in it, so that's why a lot of people are like, "Let me just get the Russian record because then I'll be satisfied that I got something." It's like because in 2023 we got nothing. It's like, bro, you can't think about it like yeah, every season doesn't end in a trophy, but every season ends with some type of game. And guess what? How he said, okay, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna go get some pieces to help out. Hey Nick, me and you are gonna go out and get a coaching staff that's gonna come in. And yeah, maybe Kellen Moore is a little bit more player friendly, but Vic Fangio is also no nonsense. He don't care how he cut it. It's dry. It's to the point. He gonna give it to you raw on national TV in all them press conferences. If he feel a certain type of way and you ask him the question, he's not gonna sugarcoat it. He gonna put it on display for the world to see. So you bring in guys like that to prevent what happened last year. Because I believe last year was a struggle for power. Nobody had control of the team, and it was like a kind of like a struggle between the vets on the team being I want to be the leader and take over the team, and the younger players kind of being like, man, you out of here anyways, kind of deal. It felt like it was like a fight between the two, and then it just came down to somebody just went, man, I don't even care.
Yeah, and part of it too is they also didn't have the guys that they needed last year, which probably leads to the vets saying, "Oh, we need to take over. There needs to be better leadership." You know what I'm saying? But when you got Bradbury out there that's getting beat, you got guys like Ben Van Sumeren, as a rookie, undrafted rookie, was having to play towards the end of the year. Nicholas Morrow was that linebacker. Like you're gonna have issues at certain points in time, and then they go and probably make a mistake and trying to put Patricia in. You look at the end of the season, guys aren't communicating; they don't know where to line up and just like the basics, right? But like you said, that's not happening this year, where you're having that level of infighting. I'm sure there's some you're even if you're when you're winning, there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be people that view things in different ways, right? But when you are winning, it helps to mend fences. People, it kind of masks some of issues that may be going on behind the scenes or certain power struggles. But here, the thing is, they could lose in the first round like they did last year. They really, I mean, it's the playoffs. Any team can lose to any team on any given day in football. Jalen Hurts could get concussed again on the 11th play of the game, and next thing you know, Kenny Pickett's out there, or maybe Tanner McKee has to play. I don't know. I'm not hoping for that. Obviously, knock on wood, but you never know what's going to happen in the game of football, right? So they could lose, but I'm not like remember the feeling going into the Buccaneers game last year? It was just like, well, let's get this game over with so we can move on to the offseason. No one had confidence that this team was going to win at that point in time. Whereas it's very possible that the Eagles could be favorites in every game in the postseason. They could. Maybe they're not against the Lions or the Vikings, but they very well could be the favorites in every game that they play in the postseason. But fans definitely didn't have that feeling. I didn't have that feeling going into the playoff game last year. It's not the same, right? And
I didn't even think we deserved to be in the playoffs. To be honest, after how we showed up the last 7 games, I was like, bro, just get me off
yeah,
this field, please.
yeah, yeah. Halftime, I was like, can we just? I'm ready to move on to the draft and free agency, but it's like,
I want to say at halftime I was already on PFF on draft simulator.
yeah, right,
No, it was just like to me, bro. It just boiled. It's like it just boiled over. You know what I mean? It was just a boil over of like struggle wins. A lot of like it felt like we was fighting for our life, even when we was 10-1. It felt like those games were long, drawn out fights, dog fights, like almost like MMA. It's almost like an MMA fighter. Every fight, he's like on the ground. He's like fighting from getting choked out, and he like spins over every end of the fight. He's like, I got one. Boom. Eventually, the luck just runs out. Like you just can't fight that way. It's not sustainable. It's just not. And then it's almost like at the end, it was just like guys was just like, I kind of don't got nothing left. Like I
right.
gave it all for 11 weeks, and it's not getting easier.
Yeah, and then you look at see if I can pull this up right now. The point differential last year, the Eagles were they had outscored their opponents by 5 points in the regular season. This year, they've outscored them by 153. Right, so I think the point differential you can see right there is just it's different in what this team is. And when you have a defense like the Eagles have and have been able to shut down, like legitimately shut down, hold teams to less than 150 yards in games multiple times this season, right? That allows you to stay in any game, right? If the other team can't score, you can't lose. So, when you have both sides of the ball playing well together is when things really come together. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, they could come out and they could blow it in the first round. I hope not, but I don't have that feeling going into the game like, oh well, this is for
I would
sure
be
we're gonna get
sick.
lost in this game. You know.
Nick, I would be sick. I'd be hurt. I ain't gonna lie. Listen, listen. I need at least 2 wins, minimum, to be okay. Anything under 2 wins, I felt like, what do we do? 18 weeks of football to go out and blow it
Right.
in week one, just But it could happen. You're right. It's any given Sunday type of league, man. That's why you play the game. That's why coaches get paid. It's two sides of the football. It's opponent and you know what I'm saying. It's the home team versus the opponent, and one gotta win. And obviously, both of them get paid top dollar millions across the board to win football games week in and week out. So
Yeah.
we have a luxury, but we had the hour mark, man. Anything you got coming for the people? Any last words for the people?
Uh, you know, just enjoy this next weekend of stress-free football because I know every time I'm wearing my Fitbit, my heart rate's at like 120 throughout the Eagles games. It's going to be nice being able to enjoy a stress-free game, enjoy getting to see some of the backup players play. I know some people think this is a meaningless game. It's definitely not. There's going to be guys playing for their career. Some guys might not ever play football again after this game. Some guys are really auditioning for positions on this team next year or bigger roles on the team next year. So there's still a lot to watch, but it is nice knowing that we don't have to stress out about this game. So will be a chill Sunday. But yeah, I mean, make sure to check out the channel. We got some stuff coming up for the game next week, and definitely excited with whoever we're playing.
Yeah, man. This is your opportunity to see some of these young guys uh, and enjoy the Sunday, man. Get you some good eats. I know a lot of people don't get to enjoy the game with with lax heart. Kind of like my guy here. I don't even wear my Apple Watch no more because the alarm won't stop going off during games, especially when they close. But yeah, man, enjoy it. Hey, man, we'll be back with y'all soon. You know, look, I like chilling up here with Nick, man. The more y'all got to comment, man. Don't be afraid to comment. It's 108 people in here right now. We only got 3 comments, man. Come on, man. Y'all got to get over here and comment. So we got have some back and forth. We here live. You know what I mean? We probably gonna do it multiple more times. Definitely want to tap in during the draft
Three,
season.
four, 4 more times for sure this season. You
4 more times Friday, man.
maybe
Y'all gotta
5 with
tap
the
in.
bye week between the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah. I might pop out to the little Pro Bowl. I might pop out. You know, especially if my team ain't got
Oh
to
yeah,
play. I definitely might go out. You go down.
you're in that area, right?
Yeah, yeah. My oldest son want to go, so I might take him out there and see what's up. But
Yeah,
hey,
that'd
man,
be
we
fun.
appreciate y'all for tapping in. Tap in again. You see what he said? 4 more, maybe 5 with the bye. So y'all tap in. Y'all show us some love. If y'all haven't yet, go to the description. Both of his YouTube and his Twitter is there. Tap in with him. Show some love. Like, comment, subscribe. Ding that bell so you don't miss none of. I don't even know why they did that. So you don't miss none of these good content going forward. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Love, peace, hair grease. Fly Eagles fly,
Yo,
baby.
Philly fam, back, back.